we're half an hour late for that Zoom interview. You should have the invite in your email. Just join in. Hey, hey. Sorry about that. Really, like, I guess because we had changed it so much, I was like, oh, it's tomorrow.
Right.
Because we had gone back and forth between Wednesday and Thursday, like a couple other times.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that happens a lot. So.
Cool. Wait, you're in St. Louis?
Yes, I am in St. Louis. Yes.
All right.
The heart of the Midwest. So.
Yeah.
We don't get much activity out here. I mean, sometimes, but most bands try to go for the Chicago and New York and LA and shit like that. So we get
I don't think I don't know if A.R.E. Weapons ever played in St. Louis. I think the only time I was ever with a band, I was just roadieing in St. Louis. I was roadieing for this old band, Quixotic.
Oh
That
yeah.
was from Christina from Slant Six and her sister Mira, White Magic. They played at. Is there a place that's just called like Chuck Berry's?
Yeah, it's the Duck Room.
The Duck Room,
The
yeah. They
Duck Room,
played
yeah.
there.
So there was we got Blueberry Hill, the Duck Room, which was kind of Chuck Berry's thing, but he also had um like his own club out in a small town called Winsville, but I think he got in trouble because he was sneaking toilet cams in there.
I vaguely remember hearing about that.
That's that's a very much still talked about here in the in
Yeah, he was a complicated man.
in some ways, yes. So, oh
Yeah. I
man,
mean, he had a lot of I don't know that much about his youth,
right.
but I mean, he definitely like as a man had a lot of deep resentments for good reason that also made him do a lot of, or not made him, but like
Yeah.
shaped his psyche in such a way that he treated other people fucking insane.
Oh yeah, he would hire a band for like to play as his backup, and then they would be like, "Hey, what songs are we playing?" And he's just like, "Just follow my lead." And they're like, "Oh shit." So, but yeah,
Oh yeah,
he'd be one of those like, "I'm not hitting the stage until I got money in my pocket" type situation. He was
totally. And he would just tour around by himself, like just in a car with his guitar. Expect the band and an amp to be there when he showed up.
yes, that's
Not
exactly.
go on stage until he was paid, and then
Yep.
not only not tell them the songs, but you hear stories about him like calling out, completely changing the key that the song is in midway through.
Yeah.
There's that great documentary about like they're doing like a whatever celebration of him,
Yeah.
Hail Hail Rock and Roll, and like there's a great scene where they're on stage during the like performance, and he's trying to do that, and Keith Richards is like, "No, man, we're not doing that." And Chuck's just laughing his ass
Yeah.
off.
That's so
So
funny. How was the Swing Kids show? You saw that, dude. How was that?
I played.
Oh, you played? Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
saw that
played.
you were in the
So
audience, and I was
I
like,
yeah, I didn't really know them. I mean, I was like aware of them,
yeah,
their existence, and like a little bit aware of their music, but because they were part of like a scene, and the one of the original members of A.R.E. Weapons was in a band from San Diego called
yeah, yeah.
Ikatawi,
Yep.
and he basically made me aware of them,
Hmm.
but I wasn't that familiar with them. Hold on one second, that's
Yeah, it's
Brain.
fine. Go ahead.
Hello. Hey, yeah, I totally spaced on it too. I thought it was tomorrow. No, I did the same thing because we were back and forth about Wednesday or Thursday. It is today. It is right now. I know because I'm on the Zoom with him.
If he can't make it, it's no big deal. So unless
Are
we all want
you
to reschedule, that's
somewhere where you can?
I'm totally open.
Yeah, we'll see in a second. We're just talking about Chuck Berry. We haven't talked about him peeing on anybody yet. We'll save that for you. Oh yeah, so yeah, I wasn't super familiar, but I was aware.
Yeah.
And then uh, Justin
So,
from
yeah.
Swing Kids has a like PR company called uh,
313.
no, well, no, that's he has another company called Chain World
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
with my friend Curran Reynolds, who has a great band called Body Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They do like sort of like metal and hardcore sort of PR. And Curran was like, "Hey, these guys are playing." I was back more familiar with like Locust than I was with Swing Kids, but these guys are playing. They were looking for in New York, and they were looking for someone to do like some free jazzy sax.
Yeah.
And you want to do it? And I said, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
And yeah, and then I ended up doing that. It was pretty fun. All very nice guys in that band, and playing with them was real fun.
What have you
And
been
the
up to?
show,
What have
what's
you been
that?
up to lately? Are you just doing like solo work? Like,
I do a lot of solo things. I sit in on sax with different
okay,
bands. Play or I play on people's records.
okay.
Like they need a little sax. Played on this band Fine Mess, their record. Uh, yeah, a lot of that stuff, and then I do like just sort of solo like singing and playing acoustic guitar, which is not something I ever thought that I would do.
Wow.
Uh, I never even owned. I still never purchased an acoustic guitar. I like found one and then like kind of picked up playing. I actually found one when we were getting kicked out of our rehearsal space. Like someone left it behind as
Yeah.
trash, uh, and picked it up playing that around like 20, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago.
Wow.
And so I've written like hundreds of songs in that way since then. And then I also have another group with my wife called Magdalena Joybringer, where I sort of, in dance hall tradition, basically like find instrumentals that I like, whether they're dance hall rhythms or just various other instrumentals that I like.
Right.
And I sing mostly my old songs over Area Weapons, TV Baby, other, sometimes covers, just like over music that was not meant for those songs.
Yeah.
And, wear crazy costumes and
Yeah.
just general party kind of vibe.
That's
Um,
awesome. Brain, are
yeah.
we coming in okay?
Yeah, yeah, loud and clear. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect, man. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be on, man. I appreciate it.
No, no, sorry for the confusion. I really like my kids home from school tomorrow. I was like, I got this thing to do tomorrow. So I was so sure it was
I
tomorrow.
get it. No, you're good. We're all good here. So, man, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be on my podcast. Matt was just talking about what he's kind of been up to lately with doing the acoustic and doing like session work with sax and singing and stuff. Yeah, if there's any more you want to add, Matt or Brain, if you want to jump in and add anything to the conversation about what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, Matt's been doing the lion's share of the creative work since COVID, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the last show me and Matt played was a TV Baby show the Sunday before the world shut down. Call it March, whatever,
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And even that, we'd kind of dusted it off for a buddy's birthday party at a club where I'm a partner. Um, and then COVID came, and then yeah, I just really have not made a lot of music since then. My daughter has started playing guitar, so um, it's and she's like taking a songwriting approach. So it's a funny new dynamic where she's explaining to me how to write songs. I'm like, no, it could go a little bit more like this, and she's like, no, Dad, pre-chorus here. I'm like, all right. I'm like, who am I to argue? So yeah, so as far as yeah, I haven't made a lot of music in the last 6 years.
That's okay. Does she? Because I got three daughters of my own. Is she drawn to the kind of music that you listen to, or is she kind of in her own world?
Not one bit. And I feel like there's two kinds of like cool parents.
Yeah.
The kind that like has their kid listening to Bad Brains at age 2.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that guy. I'm neither here nor there on it, but I'm waiting for her to say, "Hey, Dad, like, who's the Velvet Underground?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been waiting for you to ask this question."
Yeah, kind of dust
Um,
off the old vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So, but and the funny thing is, like, I these older these things are going viral. I can't even think of one, but like, she'll be put on like an '80s song, and she's like, "I like this a lot." I'm like, because it's on TikTok or something. So I feel like we're approaching the point where like we can have a talk about good music. But she's just into whatever young,
Whatever's out.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
and such. So
she's only 8 years old.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Like, you. It's very. I feel like no matter who you, kids are just so much more driven by like what their friends are listening to, or like what's in the video that they like, or what's in a movie that they, like all of the kids that age were like love the K-pop Demon Hunters songs for like a year,
Hmm.
and was yeah.
What was your guys' kind of experience when you, since we're talking about growing up, I mean, were you kind of started off listening to your parents' music and then kind of discovered your own musical path? Tell me about your guys' sort of, because I mean, I've done, a lot of research on you guys and your kind of backstory, and you kind of learned your music knowledge through going to Tower Records and, stealing albums and shit like that. But tell me about kind of where it where started, you're listening to your parents and then it's like, oh shit, there's all these other bands out there. Tell me about your guys' sort of background in music development from the beginning.
you want to go first, or you want to go?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say that I feel like both Brandon and I had a pretty good like lead into it from my mom and stepdad.
I mean, yeah. I mean, my trajectory kind of. I'll tell you where it hits Matt's. It was Hendrix and Van Halen and all that stuff into Metallica, and and that's probably age 12. I had like a cool aunt who
Oh,
gave
that's
me,
yeah. I forgot about
and my cool aunt like gave me her old stereo when she went to college. She was like my mom's youngest sister, 10 years younger, and she gave me like her turntable, turntable and sound system, and like a stack of records, which was Clash and Elvis Costello and and a Velvet Underground tape. I always remember that. So that was like, and I was coming out of the harder stuff, and then kind of start getting into the you know cooler new wave canon. This is probably age 12, Matt, which is right around when Matt and I met, and at the same time, Guns N' Roses is happening. But so then me and Matt meet, and he's got his mom, who's like a big music head and a reggae head, dating Matt's stepdad, who's like an old Boston, New England, kind of punk rocker. And that's so I meet Matt, and like, and that's where we get exposed to James's Matt's stepdad's record collection, and that's everything from I don't know the Germs to New York Dolls, a lot of like Boston specific, Feelies,
Mhm.
Willie Loco Alexander,
Yeah.
so that I mean, so I feel like by the time we kind of met and became friends, and like, and this is predates us having garage bands literally in Matt's, well, but in
Basement band.
basement, yeah, starting in Matt's basement. We meet, we become friends in the 6th or 7th grade. Really excited about James. James was 6'5" and he had really long hair, and he was like, an appealing dude. He was like, he's kind of a wild man, so it's like
Yeah.
you're like, he was a good salesman for that. Cut to and but I'd started taking bass lessons and stuff. So I mean, this all predates us, like having our first band by six. We meet, we like are listening to all these records. Cut 6 months later, we've got like a basement band called the Depraved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is really, and that's, I mean, that was the beginning of, I don't know, 30 years of me and Matt playing a lot of music together on an almost daily basis, you know.
Yeah.
Matt, is there anything you want to add to that, or is that pretty much covers it all?
No, that is well put. Yeah.
What has really kind of kept you guys so solid all these years, and and kept you guys just creatively driven? What is there something, just kind of this need to be creative? Like, tell me about your sort of, what made everything click so well between you two, for between ARE and TV Baby and everything in between.
I mean, it's both the shared language of those uh, that library of music from our formative years. We were finding out about the same things at the same time, and like having sort of similar sensibilities that come from being sort of slightly intellectual people, but where we were from, there's like an inherent tension there, and sort of like we're from Massachusetts, of like a very sort of like Massachusetts holds a real tension between anti-intellectualism and being smart.
Smart. You got to be, you know, the
You know, I think that really makes a certain type of person that we both, were becoming.
And yeah, and to continue in that, I mean, me and Matt started speaking the same musical language, that maybe only the two of us spoke, where we thought like the same esoteric things were like very important, from
Yeah.
a video that was, an Ornette Coleman video that was handed down from his, it's like we'd speak this language where, we agreed. There was some very art, I mean, logistical disagreements, sure, like I think things should be like this, but as far as what we thought was good and cool, it was like, almost 99% aligned. So, um, so it was a little bit also like, kind of Ren and Stimpy, like, what are we going to do today? It's like, well, I guess we're going to go to the studio and like, listen to the same beat for 6 hours and see what happens.
Yeah, totally.
So, and that's what we did for a long time. I mean, it's, I don't know if we were productive or, or not hype, I don't know if we were efficient or inefficient people because we spent a lot of time, but we also made a lot of music, and there
oh
would,
yeah.
I don't know if we recorded 100 songs or similar, in addition to all the ones we didn't release. Like, that came out of us spending a lot of time fucking around, and like, with a decent amount of cigarette breaks and, fucking
Yeah.
bullshit about the Mets and stuff. Yeah, so I don't know that it was a grand design rather than like, this is what I believe in. I've got this guy who I've known my entire life who believes in very similar things, and let's just do this. So,
Yeah.
Was there like a set path, like when you started ARE? Did you have like an agenda in mind? Were you kind of, I mean, obviously, like with Suicide and Velvet Underground and stuff like that, where you just really got those influences? Was there kind of like, here's the game plan for this project, and did you guys kind of stick with that, or did it just kind of develop through time? Tell me about the sort of the beginning process with
and
ARE. And I
it,
mean, and it progressed into just amazing. I mean, ARE was one of my major building blocks. I bought the debut album just because of the cover art alone. It was just because it was like, oh, that looks like Pazuzu from The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And again, I judged the book by its cover, and I put it in, and I went, oh my god, like it totally rewrote, my DNA. And I was kind of into this sort of electronics thing, with industrial music and shit
Mhm.
like that. But then you guys really opened my eyes to synth punk and no wave, and they put you guys in with like Electro Clash, which has those elements, but I think that's kind of progressing, and even just dance punk. Yeah, you guys were like you guys were the door, that just it led into that path. So tell me about sort of the beginning of ARE.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
the beginning was very specific and very not deliberate.
Hmm.
I mean, this was the point where like before we moved to New York, we lived in DC,
Yeah.
and we lived in a house that was like nicknamed the Embassy, where the Nation of Ulysses guys had lived.
Hmm.
And there was 10 of us who were all musicians, and everybody had a band or but what there was also lots and lots of bands, so um, we had moved to New York, and Matt can correct me on this. His historical memory is a little bit better, but at that time, our main band was Isler's Angels, which was,
Hmm.
you know, pretty out there, untrained free jazz band.
Yeah.
There was a series of concerts in the back of a coffee shop called Pink Pony,
Yeah.
curated by a guy whose name I'll never remember. Um, but it would we'd have a band with our friend Jim, or with Ryan, or just any permutation of you know 3 to 5 of the 20 people we know who played music, and we'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, we're going to call this Funky Fingers or Perfection or Russia, or whatever we're going to call it. And A.R.E. Weapons really came up as like another one of these little project bands that in this permutation I was going to sing, which I didn't really do much of. We had a little Roland 505 drum machine, which we'd play around with. I think we got maybe when I was in college, and we were playing around with in DC. We were big Suicide fans,
Hmm.
so I don't think we could have a band with the type of people that we are with a drum machine and not have some element of that in there. Um, and it was a drum machine. And Matt, were you playing bass and Ryan playing guitar?
Yep.
And I think we probably wrote between 4 and 6 songs specifically to play in the back
That
of
one show. Yeah.
that one show. And then there's probably 4 other bands, and we might have been in 3 of them, if like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like Air Weapons, followed by
Yeah.
Neon.
I think that Centuries, that was their first show as well. And I think that uh, Lizzie Bugatzos and DeGraw and might have done Eagle Blood or something like that show.
So I mean, so yeah, that I mean, I mean, it was really a one-off kind of thing. But I guess for me personally, and okay, something clicked. Like, oh, this, like, it maybe felt for me like a 10% better than some of the other projects. Or
It
I
had,
think it's also like, I mean, the ego in me. It's like, man, I really enjoy this band with me as the lead singer and all.
yeah.
Like,
Well, but I also felt the click there too. And I think it had to do with maybe just because the name came from a dream, but like also where we were at, like from the beginning, it had its own sort of like aesthetic.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other bands were, more just improvised music in the moment, fun and often beautiful, but airy weapons like felt like it like came with its own lore.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is we were into, as everybody who's ever been in a band who doesn't work a whole lot and drinks a lot of coffee, there's a rabid consumption of, kind of out there literature and cinema, right? So we were big fans of Fassbender was a huge influence.
Yeah.
I, for whatever reason, was like fairly preoccupied with the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was this kind, and there's the punk, visual expression via zines, which we did, and
Mm-hmm.
flyers, which we made and stuff. And I think, like, where our head was at on this kind of like edgy '70s, sort of. It, it clicked easier, like like our what we were into visually and aesthetically and stylistically, and even the clothes we wore maybe made more sense with this type of music rather than being in a free jazz band. We were like definitely the I don't know, punkiest free jazz band that I had come across.
Yeah.
So it all just, I mean, it's maybe where the the no wave we were into, the synth we were into, the 70s German whatever we were into, all like made the most sense as artistic cohesive whole or something. And and also I this we start playing more shows in the back room of Lakeside Lounge and other
Parkside.
Parkside or yeah, like we and our friends all have always thought we were cool, fun dudes, but and they'd come watch us play free jazz for an hour.
Mhm.
But now you're giving them something that like they can sort of dance to, and
Yeah,
there are a bunch of people who are like, on paper, or everybody was, punk music, whatever that means, from everybody, we're rock and roll fans, so it's like, oh, cool. Now these guys who are cool and fun are like in a rock and roll band, and that's good for everybody. And then, then we fell in, and then there's like, I'd say, kind of skips to the next chapter, Matt, to the Thomas era, right?
yeah, which was pretty shortly thereafter.
Mhm.
But also formative. I mean, I think
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
so Thomas Bullock, who had come in, and had left the band because he was having a child. Basically, by the time it was falling apart during the recording of the first record, and by the time the first record came out, he was out. Is that right, Matt? Like, give or take.
Yeah, well, he just yeah, his life was changing in ways that ours weren't, and he just needed to he just was seeing that he wasn't going to be able to be doing it full time anymore.
Right.
He had to sort of look at other things that he could do to help his
Right.
family.
But to go back a year, there's a formative year where we're like, we were friends with Thomas. He was primarily a DJ. We were, these free jazzers or whatever. I think something clicked where we started doing sort of drum machine synth music, and
Hmm.
the type of music. He was like a house music DJ sort of, but he was also pretty left field.
Mhm.
So there was there's a kindred spirit there. We were like into, I don't know, gangs and in New York and subways and you know
Yeah,
as was he and a lot of people who moved to New York.
yeah,
So so we went from making music in our apartments. He had a set up a kind of an impromptu studio in an elevator shaft in the loft he had in Greenpoint, where we kind of made
started recording some songs,
we
and
that
I think
became our our the kind of our demo that like
The gold demo. Yeah.
yeah,
the gold demo, and this is this point. So we've met Thomas, and then very soon. I mean, it's funny in these formative years, everything happened. I mean, probably more happened to me in the first 5 years of New York than as far as
No, it,
this.
it happened pretty quickly, right?
It happened quickly, and that's when we met Paul Seveny, who thought he was like leaving the world of
finance job.
not exactly you know
I think the finance place that he was working at got raided by the FBI.
so he was out of a job, and he'd started to DJ, and he's like, you guys are I really like your energy, you're fucking nuts, like I'm gonna be your manager. Us being like terribly inexperienced music business people were like, fuck yeah, this guy's fucking crazy, and he's never been a manager, and he's fucking nuts, and that's gonna be good for our career.
Yeah,
um, and and it was in a lot of ways. I mean, he
yeah,
and he didn't have a lot of money, but he kind of financed, the printing of these first 1,000 gold demos that
yeah,
we made
and
on,
was
we had,
able to
you know,
push it out there to people.
yeah, and at this point, like, there's a, between, we were just like friends with a lot of magazine people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
fashion people,
Uh-huh.
and one of our, firstest, biggest shows in my mind was we played at a fashion presentation for our buddies as four
Yeah,
in a public school in Chinatown, and we probably had 6 songs to our name. And I remember New York Muscle is one of them.
Mhm.
And we were on a stage in a high school auditorium or a middle school auditorium for like 500 very cool fashion people, and we always, and before that, we spent more time in the art world and the music world, the art world and the fashion world than the music world. Matt worked at a very cool gallery called American Fine Arts, and we play shows at you know
At
Pat.
the gallery and at Pat Hearn Gallery and
Yeah,
other things like that.
so it's it's this world where we're these kind of like music guys, and we're these rock, free jazz rock and roll weirdos from DC. And we meet Thomas, who's a bit more of a producer. Meet Paul. We're already kind of hanging out in that art meets fashion world, which leads to us being in kind of the cool lifestyle magazines,
Yeah. Mm.
your IDs and your Dazed and Confused and your papers and stuff. Which fast forward a bit, it's gonna it never really bit us in the ass, but
Nah.
when we actually put a record out, and there was a process between Rough Trade being like, oh, you guys are cool, and us being, and they wanted to, and us being really adamant about, recording more.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, by the time you skip fast forward, this is all 2001 ish. You fast forward to 2003, which seemed like a lifetime at the time, but it's only 2 years really.
Yeah.
When the first record comes out, there'd been enough of us as like these scruffy boys in these lifestyle magazines that I think a lot of people didn't want to take us seriously as musicians. and
Yeah, for sure.
and didn't. There was like, oh, these like New York guys, and who are ostensibly homeless. I mean, the funny thing is, this is like the same time as the Strokes. From some young gents who did come from what I understand, fairly privileged
Oh yeah.
backgrounds. People are like, oh, these guys cannot be as like broke and disconnected as they're pretending to be. They have to be rich kids.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we were shouldering doors to like sleep on the top stairways of buildings.
Yeah, like continually moving out of apartments at night, like just just kind of owing a landlord, thousands of dollars, which was a insurmountable fortune to us at the time. Um, yeah, so that's and then I guess to back up, if we're doing the whole story, um, Paul comes in, the demo comes out, and it's like it gets passed around, and I think we literally got a fax from Rough Trade somewhere. It's like, hey, and we're like, this is great, and they're like, well, this demo is really cool. You want to put it out? And um, I don't know, Matt. I mean, was it just ambition or more ideas we had to get out? Like, we just thought it was cool, but we wanted to like make
Yeah, we
record.
it was a ambition of not necessarily financial sorry,
Just
financial
creative ambition.
ambition of ideas. Yeah, where we're like, yeah, the demo is cool, we love it, uh, but it's kind of like lo-fi, and we feel like it's gonna like pigeonhole us into being this sort of quasi suicide
Yeah.
band that we don't want to be necessarily. Like, we love suicide, but part of the ethos of all of that is being your own thing.
Yeah.
And so we were like, no, we want it to be like, crazier and more dance hall in there,
And bigger,
and big, yeah, bigger, like, yeah, like, yeah.
That makes sense.
and in hindsight, things might have moved faster because it was very much 2001. It was there was like a lot happening with the New York. Doing a lot of air quotes in this interview,
Yeah.
but like New York rock and roll was really hot. It was like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
rock and roll is back, and it's coming out of New York. And I think the momentum play would have been to maybe put out the demo
Oh, 100%.
record it,
No question.
but in hindsight, then we wouldn't have made the first record. And the first record, rough trip. Rough. This is right after 9/11. We were able to rent an entire floor of a loft in Tribeca.
Like a few blocks from ground zero.
like 3,000 square feet in which we had like two chairs, a synth. I mean, it was actually awesome, and we, the same, the, kind of. I mean, for I don't know if it was 20 or 25 years of our lives, Matt and I would wake up and drink too much coffee and meet and make music either in an apartment on Spring Street or 14th Street or wherever, and we just did that in Tribeca, and that's where Don't Be Scared and Hey World and Bad News, all these songs that I'm still very proud of,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
all came up. So like I don't know what would have happened next if we but I know that the first album as constituted and delivered would not have happened
Yeah.
without that process.
Exactly.
And then I think if you're a Rough Trade, maybe you like. I think they like the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, like within any organization is not a monolith. I think there were people there that liked it, and there were people there that thought it was complete crap.
yeah, well, but if anything, we kind of stuck to our guns, and Paul was a big part of that because like if you were just a fly on the wall, I mean, Paul had in my mind, and I wasn't around for Colonel Tom Parker, but it was very much like these guys are fucking geniuses. Leave them alone. Let them fucking work. It'll be ready when it's ready. And you're in the room being like, yeah, that's right. So Paul was, a big supporter and like, no, you guys are the fucking geniuses. I'll take care of the business. Or,
Cool.
Yeah.
you just do your thing. So yeah, I'd say I don't. We definitely didn't lack for ego at the time.
Well,
And I think any good band need that
it's essential. I
yeah,
mean,
you need to be
for
confident.
anyone making anything.
Yeah. So and yeah, so that it took a year in Tribeca and then a month and this was like 20 years ago, or a little longer now, where when you get a record deal, like they they I don't know that there's an but the idea that like they flew us to London, put us up in a studio for a month, got us a little house, which was pretty normal at the time. You'd sign a band, and then you'd like and they paid to put us on the road and did a fair amount of touring in the UK,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then um, I don't know. I mean, we got some like humorously terrible reviews for the first album, and some,
Yeah.
but I get
I think that is something that even at the time we loved because most of the things that we loved uh, getting to that point were always things that people either loved them or hated them.
Yeah.
I mean, not we didn't want to put out a record where people were like, yeah, this is pretty solid, like blah blah blah. It's either like this is complete garbage or this is the fucking most insane shit I've ever heard.
and while this was all happening, we were like becoming more powerful in our own minds,
Yeah.
and we were playing shows that were we never played it. By the time we had a record release show at a club called the Park, and there might have been 500 people there, but we were getting better and better live. So which is a self like you're playing these shows and we're friends with graffiti artists and a bunch of like real kooks and punk rockers, and you play these shows and you're becoming a better live band, and people by the time we were like we were started supporting the album in London. I remember Rough Trade booked us to open for the Pet Shop Boys, thinking it would be like thinking it would be this really crazy
Controversial moment.
yeah, because the Pet Shop Boy fans would just hate us, but at this point like we were just kind of at the height of our like I don't know just like cheekiness and like I don't know if cheap but like we just presented I think as like kind at the same time like aggressive, sort of sexy, kind of out there dudes, and like the Pet Shop Boy audience ate us up.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I mean, there might have been some there like just waiting for like the main act
Of
to,
course, as
but like but this whole time where it's like, and yeah, so even when the record comes out and someone's like, "This is the worst thing you'll ever hear," you're like, "Fuck you,"
Yeah,
because
it's very easy to uh, ignore that or laugh at it when you have like sort of proof of concept from especially the your home crowd like adoration, when you know that it's genuine and not manufactured.
Well,
yes,
I
I
was
mean,
gonna. I,
I guess the last thing I was and we sort of
yeah,
like really, we kind of had this like street gang mentality, and never to conflate, actually being tough guys with knives and any of that. But like a lot of bands, we had like the leather jackets with our band name on it, and like, we had this like, again, like not like a real street gang, and we're not saying we're like ever real tough guys or anything, but we had this like this, kind of gang mentality that came from having a tight friend group, and I don't know. I think I think that attitude. I think we always had a lot of attitude, and we put in our song names and stuff. Like, I I think people who appreciated us probably appreciated the attitude. you
yeah,
know.
right.
Yeah,
You guys kind of held on to that sort of. There was like an aesthetic to it, to the sound and to the visual aspect, and it really just felt like. I mean, this, in my opinion, it just really felt like this was your guys' sort of middle finger to what was developing in the New York scene with, don't, I mean, I like the Strokes, I like the Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs, but you guys were just like, whatever that is, we don't want to be part of it. Is that just me, or did that seem like,
no, that is definitely, and it comes from even what had been preceding us. And again, I don't nothing against a lot of like the more like indie bands
yeah,
of New York of like the '90s, but we were definitely more acolytes of you know uh,
And
Johnny Thunders than we would have been of I don't need to
punk
like
heavy stuff. Yeah.
throw any bands under the bus, but
Well,
then sort of more jangly sort of pop bands of New York of the '90s.
yeah, I mean, I just say like source material, like like minimal synth stuff, no way, like the No New York and all of that stuff. Like, I mean, we were really big No Wave fans,
oh yeah,
and
Yeah,
then really big hip hop fans, like when
yeah,
like Wu Tang and all those solo albums all came out in the mid '90s, and that was like an eye opener for me. And in hindsight, I wish like we could have. I think in our minds we were incorporating elements of that, but we weren't. But I mean, I guess the
I
same thing.
mean, well, that was a big. I feel like that was a running thing in area weapons, even from the very beginning. But like trying to somehow wed no wave and like hip
Production
hop
music.
and dance hall and punk rock, like and like Brain said, we recorded a lot of songs that people have never heard. I mean, like sometimes it was a constant experiment in that, and a lot of times the experiment failed,
yeah.
and sometimes it succeeded.
Yeah, sure. And that kind of comes with pretty much any at any point, when you're recording. But I mean, if it means anything, you guys were my like I stepped in and went, okay, I could see they're pulling from this, and it helped me kind of branch out to find, no wave, and then I'm looking into no wave artists and no wave filmmakers and stuff. Like it really just put me into that sort of that
That
pathway because of your guys' music. So I would say it was rather a success if that was your sort of driven play, and even just hip hop and everything in between. It was just like it started here and then it just kind of branched off into other things because I listened to that self-titled album and it really just was like blew my mind. So I
that
think
really
success.
that really makes me happy that that you got that from that, and I hope
Yeah.
other people did as well, because those all of those things were really life affirming to us,
Mhm.
even though like on the surface aesthetically a lot of them is sort of negative or brutal or uh desperate or angry. uh they were life affirming to us,
Yeah,
and
I mean, we were like, to put it in Warren Zevon. We're excitable boys, you know. We get, you know, but and kind of a lot like that song. Like we, you know, we'd like, you know, you know, binge Berlin Alexanderplatz and just be like, dude, this is so fucking awesome. Or like
Yeah,
In a Year of 13 Moons, which is a devastating film. Just you know,
yeah,
devastating. And I think I might have seen it for the first time in a college avant-garde film class, but you know, this just devastating film of fucking slaughterhouses, and you know, and you're like, wow, that's fucking awesome, you know.
yeah.
And I think you know, you probably pick it up talking to us, like I don't like we've never been like gothy, depressive
Yeah, of
dudes. You know, like
course.
I think we're like pretty positive fellas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the stuff we loved, you know, it's like, oh man, you got to read this Jean Genet fucking prison novel. You know, it's like, um, you know, and stuff, you know, and like, you know, and Burroughs and all the stuff that like, you know, excitable high school kids get into. You know, I think you know it goes back to us. You know, Matt was more of a skateboarder, but than I was, but like you know, skate videos and skate culture and all of these things which are like pretty anarchic in a way, just seeming super awesome. And then you start going to punk shows when you're, you know, going to Fugazi shows and, you know, other stuff when you're a kid and you're like, if you looked at it, if you squinted, you might be like, well, this is just a very male aggressive thing. And there's some of that to it. But I don't know. It's just, you know, all of these things that were like, you know, pretty hard, you know, just always you know, I think to speak for Matt, I think we found a lot of joy in them, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Um,
as such made you know
I
some.
mean, even Eiler, I mean, who is like Albert Eiler is a, you know, probably the second, you know, if you had to rank them, like Suicide and then Albert Eiler and his varied recorded output. I mean, like in some ways it's extremely harsh, but there's like almost always like pretty aching beauty, like right underneath the surface,
yeah.
if not on the surface.
Not unlike a Frankie Teardrop or you know like Suicide's music, like at the same like you know it's very you know from Ghost Rider to Frankie Teardrop, it's like it could be construed as very bleak, you know.
Yeah,
But it's like you know, I mean, and us knowing Alan just a little bit towards the end of his life, it's like it's like the bleak music is a protest against you know it's an affirmation that you still believe in you know beauty and you know
Yeah.
and making things and I don't know yeah, and I remember like you know Matt had a girlfriend in DC and like you know it's like sitting in Emily Powers' like upstairs room in the dark listening to Frankie Teardrop, you know,
Yeah.
and just being like, and that being our idea of like you know good wholesome summer afternoon fun, you know.
But you got to have that balance. I think because I had one dude on my pod where he grew up Mormon and he's very happy guy who does marketing, but he does grindcore music and it's all murder this and kill that. Like it's okay to be like you know you're this, but you know you write about things that interest you and you that you should be okay to express that no matter what. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the purpose of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question. So one of my favorite videos to go to was your guys' late night with Carson Daly,
Yeah.
or was it Last Call? I can't remember.
Yeah,
But
big glass.
that performance just, I just get so inspired by it. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah, very well. And
totally.
I guess earlier when I said we were becoming powerful,
Yeah.
like that would you know that might have been us, you know, all things at the height of our powers or
Mm.
something, or you know I think maybe a level where we got to. It's like my wife, who's in the other room working, like you know, we just met was a bunch of our friends were in the audience, you know, and yeah, I think we were just kind of at the top of our game. And the funny thing is, so like now, I have, you know, I don't operate in the punk rock world anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, and I don't have long hair, and I usually wear shirts. And like at some point, somebody will like come across the video and be like,
Yes.
Exactly.
Even the
Where's
first
that
time
here? Yeah.
the first time I played it for my daughter, she like watched the video and she's like, "Do you still have that shirt?" It's her first takeaway. I was like, "I do still have that shirt," you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that was, and I don't even know when it was, but that I don't know if there were 40 of our friends in the audience or maybe just 20 who felt like 40, but for some reason they let us like invite all our friends.
That's
Yeah.
good.
It was, yeah. I also remember from that, the someone from the crew or the production team was looking at us kind of side eyed because they were like, they told us straight up, they're like, you're the only band that we've ever had in here that brought their own equipment in.
Oh wow.
But like, yeah, I mean, well, because our equipment was like you could squeeze in the back of
Yes.
the taxi. Like we're coming
Yeah.
in with our like beat up little like synth case,
Mhm.
um, and and maybe I think we were on there through a friend of a friend,
Yeah.
um, but I guess in hindsight, we're like just walking into NBC, but like I guess a lot of things at that time it seems strangely normal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're gonna go be on a late night
Yeah.
show.
It didn't seem that crazy.
No, not at all.
Um, but compared to the size of the act we were at the time,
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah. So no, yeah. It's funny. There's not so much video footage of us playing out there, so I'm kind of glad that is sort of what comes up because I think it is.
Me too.
It's like a good performance, and like I also think like when we played, like we I don't know, we really like gave it the old college try.
Oh yeah.
And that was like I didn't know any other way of doing it. Like this, like sometimes you see like a band and they're just up there, playing along. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that
I, I,
that's a
I
different way to
still,
do it. But we'd be exhausted after a show, like
yeah, I still struggle with that. Like I said, like now if I'm playing like a show where I'm just like singing, playing acoustic guitar, I'm like, I get off the stage and people are like, yeah, that was great. And I was like, I didn't even fucking do anything because I'm not, I didn't
Yeah.
sweat or bleed while I was playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I also still sort of like, and I try to check myself, like, you don't have to scream
Yeah.
because people can hear you. You have a microphone.
You still hold on to that energy where, and even just getting older, you try and like really push that, forward, and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, I gotta take a couple breaths. I can't push it like I used to, and, playing, for playing drums,
Oh yeah,
I
I
think I
can
still had that energy, and then it's just like, whoa, I'm like out of one, after one song, I'm like, all right, I gotta take a break. My hands are starting to bleed a little bit, like just
yeah,
don't
you
have
got to
that.
pace yourself.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, I mean, playing drums especially is
Hmm.
so physical.
A lot of energy.
Yeah.
A lot of energy on that one. Is talking about Ryan a touchy subject? Is there anything? Did it kind of change the dynamic after his passing?
We were living, it did, it did, and it's not really a touchy subject, but it's
Okay.
something that I think about in all different kinds of ways.
Sure.
Like, we were like, three musketeers from at one point coming from, he moved to DC from San Diego, and we had our free jazz bands together and other bands together. And then, to be honest with you, we were all living pretty rough at that point, not really,
but
we,
but mostly by choice.
but yeah, well, yeah, I mean, in the sense that we could have chosen to get
Jobs.
other jobs. I mean, other ways to make money. Uh, but and he just kind of disappeared one day, and he had disappeared a couple other times before, but it was devastating. But like, I don't know, because of our age or because of the only reason I was sort of prefacing how things were going at that point, like we really did in the moment just kind of keep going forward.
Yeah, of course.
And
And he came back. He came back into our lives, and it was great but also dark, and then passed away pretty quickly
Yeah.
Yeah,
after.
it was nice to have him back. I mean, he had I'm not even gonna call him demons. He had like substance abuse problems,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
slash demons, and he disappeared, and like we didn't know where he went, and like
Right, because we didn't have, and also just saying that, the way that we were living at the time, none of us had a home or cell phones.
yeah,
Like,
it's not like
we
he
didn't
like
have a way to talk to each other,
it's like not
and
like he like drop a letter like, hey, this is where I've been, and he came back, and it was like great to have him back, and then like you know it, we were the Three Musketeers. I think things had changed. The circumstances had changed a little, so it was like good to have him back, but maybe not just like the instant click. And I think, you
well, and
know,
I think he was coming back thinking erroneously that we were in a position of a little bit more stability than we were,
Mm.
um,
and you know,
and who knows how things would have like. It was just like it was kind of like the adjusting to all being back together, and also musically, like there was a point where he was playing guitar, and we brought in another guy. There was like kind of how do we fit Ryan back into this musically?
yeah,
And I don't know that we'd fully figured it out.
no, I
We
don't think,
didn't. We didn't. And then but it's also like he's like readjusting to New
like,
York, and like um, the and he passed away, and then to Matt's point, I think you just keep trucking along. I think on a very analytical kind of cold level, it's just like the next record wasn't very good
Mm.
in my
right, because rather than, yeah, not rather, but like we put out another record, and we should have taken time to deal with.
Right.
and if you listen, like I don't know if it's like the dock of what's the antidote that I don't even have clear, like the dock of the bay or whatever. Like,
Mm.
is that the one where like somebody passed away, but they kept up with the session, and you listen to it, and it sounds really sad and mournful.
I think so. Yeah.
I might be confusing,
Mhm.
like
So someone will comment in the comments. We'll figure it out.
but anyways, but it's like if you listen to the record, but it's like at that point we're like just trucking along, and I don't know, it's like it's maybe for the first time that like upward momentum and the I'd say if we became less powerful to keep going to that. It's like you were like
Yeah,
you're like a little bit lost if you listen to the record. I mean, I guess there's some higher points than others, but there's also like
pretty
question, there's
bad
like
stuff.
questionable decisions. You're like
Yeah,
this was the song, and this is one that we made for. I really avoid the record. I could re-listen to it and be like, oh, maybe, but like these tears. It's like this really melodramatic,
Mhm.
yeah,
heavy
yeah.
thing. It's where I think we lost for us, and we'd regain. I think we'd regain our form a little on Modern Mayhem or Darker Blue.
Mhm.
We'd we'd lost. It became kind of like a heavy rock record. You
Sure.
know,
Oh, that record is totally heavy rock
it's
record.
like a heavy rock record where it's and if you could like see people like dealing working through something in a macho, not very healthy way, or just like it just became a hard rock record without any of the humor,
Mhm.
the
Yes,
it didn't
it's
sound
not yeah, the joy,
the
honestly.
joy, and also like I don't want to lean too hard into being like we're like a New York band from New York, and we love New York and New York, New York, New York, but that is kind of part of our thing.
Of course.
And that second record could have it was like placeless, and I think like
Mm,
the humor and the wit and the pulling from here and here, and maybe there's a little rockabilly, and maybe there's a little of this, and like
Mhm.
all the things that I like about us were kind of missing for that record.
Did it
So
feel like you were pressured into, all right, now was it a label thing or was it just a you thing going, okay, we got to jump on while,
it,
the iron's hot type
just,
situation?
it was an us thing, and it wasn't even we got to do this while the iron's hot. It was literally like we just have to. I mean, we literally made fucking t-shirts that said "Drive On"
Yeah.
with his name on the back and the
Wow.
and a grim
Grim Reaper on
and a
it.
grim reaper. Yeah, it was a little. It was a yeah. It was that keep on trucking like thing that you know. We're like we're maybe. I'm not saying we needed therapy, but like maybe like a pause or reflection, or like not that we could afford therapy at the time, but like
No.
Right. I get
you
that.
know, but like it was just like, and I feel like it's this was before memes, but it's like it was young men dealing with grief and
In a piss
in,
poor way.
in a non-productive way. Because you know what you do, you like, I mean, we'd still go, and it's not like we were like, I just think we weren't in the best headspace, and the music reflects that, and like,
Sure.
Yeah.
and like, and then we made, it's just like, it's where, and there was no pressure from the music industry because we weren't really part of it, but like, it's it's what the notion of like, I remember we made this video for like, this kind of like the highest production value video we ever made for a song that we probably shouldn't have chose.
We didn't even want it to be on the record. We like it was a last minute inclusion on the record, and then like of course that's the one that the director chose, and
We didn't
we
push.
weren't paying for it. He was basically like I don't know. He
Yeah,
was a lovely guy, but
yeah. We just it's just like our moral compass isn't the word, but like our artistic compass was a little fucked up at the time. I think.
yes, I agree.
But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
And and I don't even know if I thought about it at the time, but like there's also the reality that like everything had been the chart had been like this. It's like from the demo to the big shows to the to now we're touring England, and now it's like we'd never dealt with the arrow going anywhere besides up.
Mm.
Not that it was like to the moon up,
No.
but and it's not like there's ever any money or stuff, but like lifestyle and creativity and being proud of yourself and your music and stuff.
Mhm.
Like we had yet to hit a kink,
Mhm.
and the fact that the kink happened after like one of our best friends died. In hindsight, maybe there's a correlation. Or there's probably definitely a correlation.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but and then it's like even like you remember like the less good times less clearly. But I think we kept doing stuff. I mean,
Oh,
there was like we changed labels, and that's the
of course.
most generous way of putting it. But
Bouncing from one label to another. Yeah.
yeah, but you stop having you stop being on a label in London that like pays for lots of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
We found Michael at Defend who was a very supportive and a
A pretty supportive guy, but
but didn't
not.
it wasn't the label just didn't have the resources, and it wasn't going to be here's another bag of money to go record, and there wasn't a bag of money to put us out on the road, um, and I think I guess that I don't know brought us back to some kind of baseline where we started writing the stuff for Modern Mayhem, and we
Yeah.
started playing with Eric. I don't know when exactly Eric came into the mix, but like Eric Rappin, who was like our drummer and like big burly, teddy bear of a guy who was a lot of fun, and and I guess in those the wilderness years is maybe where we were like going to tour in Scandinavia a little bit, and like I think there was fun stuff that came up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did other little tours and stuff, but touring when you're at the sort of low mid tier sort of type of band is the way that you like. Well, maybe not now. I don't know how you make money as a band now, but is the way that you sort of like keep grow and like make it into more of a job or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to do that coming out of New York because the rent is so fucking high.
So high.
So
Yeah.
if you're like trying to like you're doing like a shoestring tour, but that's not really feasible. We'd like do we did some, but like we'd come back with no money, and then you're fucking in the hole on rent. So we just kind of stopped leaving New York, which doesn't was definitely difficult for us.
I get it just because, when I talk to a lot of bands now, um, they say it's still just like logistics, you know what I mean? And it's hard to, between gas and but not just that, but yeah, you say you live in New York and you got to set some money back and just go, okay, I got to make sure I keep my apartment or whatever you got there loft, and it just got to have that money. But also, it's like you got to have gas. You got to be able to
Yeah,
eat and not just that, but you don't want to live in your you don't want to stop at a gas station, live in your van or a truck stop. And
yeah,
I've been through that where you're sleeping in the back of the van, because you can't have enough money to, or you can't find anybody to crash with or get a hotel room or something. Like it takes its toll on you. So I understand where it's like, it's difficult to try and just get out of the area that you're familiar with and try and branch out when it's just like sometimes the odds are against you.
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I mean, I guess that fast forwards us a little bit to TV Baby,
Yes.
where I'll speak for Matt, and he can kind of correct me. It's you do it, and like Modern Mayhem and Darker Blue, and we were in this cycle where every couple of years we'd by hook or by crook get the money to go like record at a studio in Brooklyn with a guy Jason Lafarge who we liked a lot.
great guy.
It made these records, but like, and we'd and there'd be a little PR push, I guess, for but it's a little bit you get what you pay for. You pay a smaller agency for a month's worth of press, and this was still in the this is still paper press kind of idea where,
Yeah,
like record reviews were helpful and features were helpful, and there wasn't a ton of those. I think maybe it got to a point where like, diminishing returns, and there was, it where maybe we were just less excited about it. Whereas I think Matt, you know, it, wanted. I think I was a little bit sick of like I was at some point I like decided I want to be a guitar player. I
Mhm.
got a guitar and got really into
yeah,
pedals and all like the nerdy shit that guitar players do.
Mhm.
And and maybe for me it's just like, well, this is something. It's kind of it's like, and I think Matt was maybe overplaying guitar because it's a little bit and had these song ideas wanted to sing, and um, yeah, where it was a way for, I think, it's like we basically started this new project and we're, I think, reinvigorated or re-excited.
yeah.
Uh,
Kind of turn
and
it
also
a little
to
bit.
some of the logistical things. Um, it didn't you didn't need to coordinate with a drummer. You didn't, we were more nimble to rehearse, to write, to go play a show because the two of us can hop in a taxi and go do it. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of so I don't know. Not that it stopped being fun, but I think the very beginning of TV Baby was funner.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Was it like, because I mean, TV Baby, the concept I think is absolutely brilliant, and I think at least with the first album, it really holds up today now more than ever. And you guys started that in 2010, just talking about, just the downfall of television and being raised on TV and everything like that. And it's such a strong concept, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Um, and then your guys' sound just got like it just really just flourished, and then with Dignity was just like I went from listening to everything with A.R.E. all the way to Dignity, and I just go, God damn, this band is just absolutely killed it, and you guys just really grown and matured in your sound, and just really you guys really just found and that's how I took away from just the whole journey with you guys, and then with Dignity, you guys worked with Gabe from the Rapture,
yeah.
and it was just like it felt like everything was kind of tied in this nice bow because you guys knew Gabe, since
Back
kind of the beginning.
yeah, since 94,
Yeah.
95.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's like another time where it's like Mountain Brain versus the world, because I mean we worked really hard on that,
yeah.
but again we like and we you know
I don't
and we released it like on a in a funky manner with like a great guy and a good friend, Justin Miller,
Mhm.
was working like we effectively sort of released it. Did that
know.
come out, Diaz?
The record label folded like the week after we were like the second release on the record label, or we were two out of the three releases on the label, and it folded like the month after or the week after we put that record Dignity Don't Dance out. But yeah, it was like a funky thing. It was like whatever. It yeah, it wasn't it
But
was a label that someone was trying to start that just never really
yeah,
started.
but again, but it's like we spent a really long time writing those songs. Like Gabe's studio was out in Greenpoint. A month or 6 weeks trucking out there. Like worked really hard on it. I remember when it came back from mastering, I was like, holy shit! Like this is great. Great record. It's like you just and like and the world doesn't care
Mm.
because the
Yeah,
world
I mean we didn't even have a real way to let the world know that it existed, it felt like. So it was just like, yeah, what are you gonna do?
and that and that was, I mean, it's and that's kind of like where my at a career pivot at that point. We're standing on Gabe's roof, and Paul, our A.R.E. manager, comes back into the story, and he was after doing nightclubs for a while we're still doing the band. He'd come back to New York, was opening a nightclub, and he's like, Brain, you want to like come in? And I'm outside of Gabe's, and I'm like, well, this means like I'm not gonna have time for music. I'm like, well, what if the record hits and we have to go on tour? And he's like, yeah, we'll work through
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
that.
Yeah.
And it could have, it's like the thing with music, it's like the whole time, it's like you got to be in it to win it.
Mm, oh, yeah.
Mm,
You're never, and and I guess like I guess we kept at it. That record we were recording in 2013, and I don't know when it came out, 13, 14 ish.
Mhm.
But even by the time, if our last show was the day before COVID, the frequency had become less and less and less, just playing
yeah.
out. And part of that's like, so I became a partner at this nightclub, which is, pretty time intensive. And then I became a dad, which is pretty time intensive. And then, in a little bit, these playing a show, on a Tuesday night for 75 people and $60
Mhm.
Yeah.
stopped,
It was
stopped seeming so exciting. And I think, as we all know, like, music is largely a young man's game, and you
yeah.
stop being a young man, and and I think it was definitely me, just because I had a lot of my play. Matt would say, hey, do you want to do this? And I'd be like, Matt, I hate to be a buzzkill, but I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where Matt, not to speak, but like where like Matt started doing like, kind of more interesting stuff by himself, or him and Ruthie's project, or
Yeah.
I mean, because Matt plays a lot of music, like
Mhm.
weekly,
Hmm.
like and that's awesome, and it's like I'm glad that one of us is still doing it. And and I never say never. I mean, I just was looking into what it would take to get an A.R.E. weapon show together, and I kind
That's
of
what I was
realized,
going to ask. Yeah.
I was kind of like, probably a week of practice, and we'd be ready to go. And it's like, I listen to these songs, I play them for my kid, or you play them for somebody, you realize I've heard them 1,000 times, I've sung them 2,000 times.
Yeah.
The riding of a bike. So I mean, I think in that TV baby show we played, in the last show we played, it was fun. We were like at one of my clubs, and it was like a kind of like a captive audience. Of course we were going to kill it, right? And we did. Um, so that's where like I think the right circumstance, and that's just basically somebody being like, hey, do you guys want to come do this? And I can guarantee you there's going to be a couple hundred awesome people, and they'll be psyched, and I'll give you some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
That would really be it.
um,
Just like as long as I got something to feed on, a place to stay, and some money in my pocket,
Yeah.
consider
but
me in.
because it would be fun. Because people also ask me. I mean, I know I'm turning this into the me part of this
No,
interview.
no, no, no.
People are like, do you miss it? I'm like, yeah, of course I miss it, because for all of like, and I think why we kept doing it for so long is for like all of your economic prospects and career assessments and stuff. Being on stage is a ton of fun,
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
and that's so it's like that's why you keep doing it, because you're playing funky art openings or the basement of Santa's party house or whatever, but like it feels awesome to be on stage, so
Yeah.
you keep doing it.
Because I know like nostalgia and reunions are such a big thing. Like if someone's like, "Hey man, just a one-off festival," you guys just kind of pop up and perform and just bring back all the old songs, or would you even just be like, "Can we do a couple songs with A.R.E. and then flip over to TV Baby?" Would you do something like that?
I, I mean, I think probably it would be more likely to be area weapons, and we would just
Yeah.
uh, or but who knows? I mean, you know, I appreciate your understanding of this
Yeah,
and your interest in it.
of course.
And we have people in that come up to us in New York that are like, you should really do that.
Hmm.
But uh, they each person's individual passion might be blinding them to the actual interest and
Sure. But I mean,
the degree of interest. Like Brain saying, like if we could know that there was going to be a couple hundred people there, but like we don't necessarily know that, and a lot of it would be great if that could happen.
I mean, the other thing that exists in the back of my mind is I remember like I remember like we were at a Suicide show at the Knitting Factory. I don't know, in the mid 2000s or whatever, and they hadn't played for a long time.
Yeah.
And, and we were there with 200 people who were like just psyched,
Hmm.
And I think like I almost think that like me and Matt being psyched was like maybe 2% of the energy in the room, and like maybe showed Suicide that they were like viable to like do another decade's worth of shows together. Um,
Yeah, and right, they put out another album after that.
yeah, I mean, not that we're taking credit for it, but like like us as typifying these like like somewhere down the road, is there some version where like the world gets rediscovers and gets excited about A.R.E. weapons or TV Baby? Like I'm extremely ready for that to happen. And but in this discovery age and the internet, and at
Yeah,
some
you never
point,
know.
all it takes is somebody samples one of your songs, and someone's like, you know,
Yeah,
like it's like this thing. That's the opposite of you got to be in it to win it. If you're not like a going concern, you're probably not going to like just pop onto the charts and get big tours. The
yeah,
other side of that is like if the world or the zeitgeist or the fucking internet or whatever you want to call it somehow falls and finds you, like
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, if
Can't force it.
yeah,
At this point, I would say.
That's 100% right. And it's a mystery though, because it's just like who knows. There's certain bands I just go, oh, when did they come back, or whatever. Like certain bands that just kind of and it just anything could really happen, and I think it would just be rad because now we're kind of living in this time where we'll get a lot of these festivals, and they'll be kind of like themed where it's like like even Ministry came back and did all their With Sympathy and that sort of 12-inch singles and
Oh
Twitch
yeah,
type stuff where he hated that shit, and but then
yeah,
people loved it, and
yeah.
they did like a one-off at a festival out in California, and who knows? Anything could happen
well,
where
I mean,
someone's just like, "Hey, let's add A.R.E. onto the list."
at some point there'll be some very niche festival being curated by somebody who like really wants us there, and we'll go.
And they'll convince, yeah, they'll convince whoever makes has
It'll
the
go.
money to be like, okay, yeah, let's see.
I'll go ahead and let you guys go. I really appreciate your time. Again, I'm a huge
Oh,
fan of your guys' music. You
pleasure
know,
to meet
I'll
you.
I'll encourage everybody to check out the albums, everything you guys got going on, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.